In this lesson, we'll cover sheets and placeholders. So we pretty much know what sheets are. Basically, a sheet is that piece of paper of a various dimension, typically with a title block that contains our views or legends or details. But you may ask, what is a placeholder? What does it have to do with a sheet? Well, basically, a placeholder isn't really a sheet, but it's a sheet in the sense of a list of sheets. So for example, if I look at my project browser in the lower left and I scroll down to sheets, I actually see sheets where I have sheet E101, E102, and so forth, all listed. These are actual physical sheets with title blocks and potential views and other elements on the sheets. But let's say we need to contain or make a sheet list, and we need to have different sheet names and numbers, or they reference an external source. Well, we can create what's called a placeholder sheet. Technically, it's not a real sheet for holding views, it's just a sheet that could be viewed within a sheet list. For example, let's create a sheet list. So let's go to your View tab, over to Schedule and Tables, and on the Schedule Table dropdown, choose Sheet List. This will create a new sheet list. For the actual fields in my sheet list, let's add sheet name and sheet number, and then click OK. So this gives me a listing of sheets that exist within this project that have views. But let's say we wanted to create a sheet schedule list of all the potential sheets we could have within this Revit project. Or we have sheets produced by other outside tools or outside programs that we want to include in this overall printed package. Therefore, we need a sheet legend or a sheet list. So what I would do here is I would add all of these other sheets that exist but not necessarily in Revit. To do that, simply select the data row, and then on the ribbon across the top for rows, click Insert Data Row. It'll add an unnamed row. You can do the same thing again, Insert Data Row. And then all I have to do is change the name by changing it to whatever that sheet name would be. Maybe it was First Floor Electrical, so I could type in First Floor Electrical, or whatever name you want it to be. Second one, maybe it's the Second Floor Electrical, and I could key that in, or whatever name you want it to be within the actual sheet list. And I could keep going and add those in and change the sheet number as well too. Now again, this is just making a sheet list. These sheets that I'm typing here technically do not exist within Revit, but they may exist within the package that you're printing. So what about sheets? Well, let's go back to the sheet where we were just at. Go ahead and close this sheet list just by clicking the X in the upper right. So on this sheet, we have views, we have a title block, and it's based on a various size. So how do we create a new sheet? Well, to do that, let's go to the View tab, and then in the Sheet Composition panel, I can click Sheet. This will create a new sheet that we can place views on. Now on the new sheet screen, you have two areas. One, you have a title block area where you can select a title block or load a title block in that you're going to place on your various sheets. The bottom part is if you want to convert one of the placeholder sheets that technically don't exist other than a name in the schedule, if you want to convert those to a real sheet. So the two that we just added, the 103 and the 104, we could technically make them a real sheet within the Revit project. That way we could put views on it, or text, or dimensions, or a title block. But if you just want to create a blank sheet and name it something whatever you choose other than the placeholder sheets, simply choose the title block that you want to apply to this sheet on the top, and click OK. This will create a new sheet based on the title block size and whatever is in that title block. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at sheets and placeholders. We looked at what's the difference between sheets and placeholders. A sheet is a real sheet within Revit that you can actually drop views on, dimensions, text, title blocks, and other elements. A placeholder is basically just a placeholder. It's a name of a sheet. For example, we created a sheet list. Now the sheet list, by default, is made up of all the actual sheets within Revit. But let's say your overall project has people outside of Revit creating detail views or drawings that are going to be printed on a sheet, but it will not be in Revit. But the master sheet schedule or sheet list will be in Revit. Therefore, we need to add that text to the sheet list. This is known as a placeholder. That placeholder could later be converted into a sheet if we wanted to put that detail in Revit. And lastly, we looked at creating a sheet.